All right, so we're on week 3 of our class. We're going to talk about the design project that's due the end of this week. So when we talk about that, we're going to talk about the standards that are due with part of this. So the ISTE standards are where you're going to start. And they talk about what children need to be doing with technology. And we've talked about this before in class, of how they're not just using it to do worksheets and technology for technology's sake, but leveraging it to learn something new, to have goals, to learn about how to be a responsible citizen in the 21st century, to make sure that they're constructing knowledge and creating and designing new things, also solving problems and communicating, and being a global collaborator, not just working within their classroom, but beyond their classroom, and making sure that they're connecting with not only other kids, but experts outside of the classroom. The ISTE standards for educators are about continually learning ourselves and leading the efforts to have kids learn and work with other educators, to be citizens of the world and collaborate with other people. Designing good educational programs for our kids, not just accepting what comes from the publisher or other people, facilitating those things for our kids, and then using data to make sure that what we're providing our kids is worthwhile and that it's meeting their instructional needs. So make sure when you design your project that you are including at least one ISTE standard for your kids. Probably one for yourself would be good too. So when we're talking about the components of this project, you got to include these 3. Obviously, you got to do one ISTE standard. I just told you that. You should also think about including an essential question. And we've talked about essential questions before, and you've designed things around an essential question. Hard concept for a lot of people, but that essential question will really guide your whole project. Also include the other standards. Now, sometimes when we're designing a project, people will concentrate on like one standard, like one reading and language arts standard. And remember, when you're doing a project, it's usually many things that you're including. It could be listening and speaking. It could be analyzing text. It could be reading defined information. So include all the standards that are in the project, because it's probably more than just one. Also, part of this project is children need to find and locate information and be able to evaluate it. That is age appropriate. So obviously that's going to look different for a kindergarten student compared to a high school kid. But finding information and being able to evaluate. And they have to be able to create something new. So they're not just doing a worksheet. They're not just doing something that's kind of rote. It's got to be something that they're creating that's new. You're going to need to include a rubric in this. It's always great to decide how you're going to assess your project before you even start it. There's some great online tools. Rubistar is probably one of the best ones. I like that one that you've already created. You don't have to use one of these online tools, but it's great to have your rubric very clearly match your project. And then you're going to have a sample project. Now, it's not something that they're going to copy. So let's say you're having them do a website. They're not going to do the exact same website you're doing. You're just going to give them a sample of what they could do and then let them build. You're going to teach them how to do some research and evaluate sources. And this can be tough because it's something that we didn't grow up with doing, because the World Wide Web wasn't there for most of us when we were doing our research. We want to make sure that they're looking at credible sources, they're strategically searching for what they want to find, that they're giving credit to the people that write the work that they're finding, even in the primary grades. And that's way different. You know, they're not going to be citing it with MLA resources in kindergarten, but they are going to be able to say where they found that information. That's still important, even at a young age. So they can copy a URL and you can show them how to do that. Very different than it would look in high school, but teaching them at a very young age that when you're taking information from somebody or using their information, you got to give them credit. And then meaningful interaction with sources. I have this conversation a lot with our AVID people. I like AVID. AVID's a good program. And we had gone to see a classroom in which the kids were taking notes. And I said, okay, now what do they do with the notes? So we go back and we highlight the notes and we uh, underline and we highlight. It's like, great. And then what do we do with the notes? It's like, well, then we put them in a binder. Like, and what do we do with the notes? I mean, if all we're going to do is take notes and highlight them, what's the point of taking notes if we're not going to create something from those notes? Are we going to write a paper? Are we going to do a research project? What's the point of the notes? Just taking notes is not good enough. It's going to be for a reason. We have that conversation quite a lot. So when we're teaching about research, we want to tell children the difference between the different kinds of endings on websites. So .com is different than a .org compared to a .edu. So teach the difference between those so they understand when they're finding information, whether it's from a commercial site or is it from a university. It's important to know. When you're searching, you can put in the right kind of site that you want to find. So for example, if you're doing World War II and you put site edu at the end of it, so with the colon and then edu, you're only going to get things from educational resources. If you do the same thing, so let's say you do World War II and then you do site colon gov, you're only going to get that from governmental sources. So teaching kids those different ways to search to get information that they want from very specific domains. Another way that you can have them learn how to search more accurately is if they use a plus sign. So right here, I've got World War II plus FDR. They're going to get just those things. You can also use a minus sign. So I've got World War II minus Japan. So you're going to get everything but nothing about Japan in that search. And if you want very specific things, you can use the quotes around it, and it will come up with only resources that have those exact specific words in them. So those are some nice ways to get specific results when you're searching. Another way is to do time specific. So if you're doing something in science, you don't want to get information from a long time ago if you're doing something on gene therapy. So let me give you an example. I'm going to pull this other screen over here and say I put gene therapy in here. And if I go to tools, I get these things up here, and I get any time here, I can go here and say within the past year, past month. I can also do a custom range. So I could say I wanted it from today all the way back to, this day. So I only want things within that specific date range. And it's going to only pull up those sources that were published then. So that's a really nice way when you want specific information. So you could also put, if you wanted World War II just that was published between these two, this decade, you could do that. A nice way to get just very specific information. Teaching evaluating sources is hard because a lot of kids, a lot of adults, don't know the difference between real information and fake information. And, we have a lot of talk about fake news and right now. But getting people to really understand what's true and what's not is pretty hard. And these are great little sites to teach kids. I don't know that I would use the male pregnancy one with elementary kids, but these are great sites to teach kids about really looking at the information and deciding, is this the truth or not? This is a great one about dihydrogen monoxide. It's about all the dangers that you can do when we have this this chemical, and it's all about water. This is also a really cute one, Pacific Northwest tree octopus. They have this octopus up in a tree, and they talk about it being endangered, and it's a really cute website about talking about evaluating, is this the truth? Just because it's on a website, just because it's published, does it make it the truth? So some fun things that you can do with kids. They've also an Easy Bib, which is more, I would say, middle school and high school. There's a resource on the side that they can ask questions, and it will help them evaluate, is this really a valid site or not? And it will ask them some questions and help them generate ideas of whether it's a good source for them. So that's a nice tool to show to kids. So here's some ideas that I just came up with. You could come up with something like this, that you don't have to use any of these, but these are some ideas that I had. We have a school that's a computer immersion school this year, and they're having kids design their own computer programs using Scratch. So they'll give them some parameters. You know, you've got to have your icon jump, and you've got to have it move through a maze, and you've got to have it say something at the end, and then the kids have to create the program with those kind of parameters. And they've done some really, I mean, my kindergartners can do this. It's pretty amazing. Another thing that would be great would a hands-on experiment. Makey is a really cool tool that even little kids can use. More elementary than it is middle school and high school, but an idea that you could think about. It doesn't have to be one of these, but these are just some ideas for you. I do not want to see any worksheets. I don't want to see something that somebody else designed. So don't give me anything from a publisher or textbook. This is your design. I also don't want to see anything that's level 1 or 2 in the DOK. So if it's about recall and just recalling facts, simple procedures, that's not going to be good enough for this. If it's about skills and concepts, so if you're just comparing and organizing and summarizing, that's not good enough either. You want to be at a level 3 and 4. So you're going to be very complex. Even with little kids, they can do this. So a level 3 would be problem solving, non-routine problems, designing an experiment, analyzing characteristics of a genre. They've got to be planning and using evidence. If they're doing level 4, they're synthesizing information from multiple sources over an extended time, transferring that knowledge to solve a problem in another, designing survey, interpreting results, analyzing multiple texts. Those would all be examples of level 4. So no level 1 and 2. Think a little bit bigger than that. It's a bigger project than just the normal day. So it's due on Sunday, September 9th. It's got to be turned in a Word doc. That's a requirement of the university. Don't turn in a Google Doc, and don't make it in a PDF. They want it in a Word doc, okay?